What makes this moment even more compelling is the emotional weight behind it. You can feel that this isn't just a football storyline anymore. It's personal. This is a young quarterback who has spent his entire life being measured, evaluated, compared, doubted, praised, and criticized, often before he ever took a snap. Growing up as the son of one of the most iconic figures in football history comes with a spotlight that never turns off. Every success is attributed to the name he carries. Every mistake is magnified because people believe he was handed everything. But what this interview revealed is that behind the narratives and assumptions is a player who has had to fight for every inch of respect. A player who has endured setbacks, adversity, and personal challenges that most people never knew about. A player who refuses to let anyone define him except himself. And that refusal is exactly what set Rex Ryan off. Because for years, Rex has built his brand on being the loud, unfiltered voice who calls things the way he sees them. But that persona only works when the players being criticized stay silent. When they accept the narrative being pushed. When they quietly nod and say they just need to get better. Shedeur didn't do that. He challenged the narrative. He challenged the premise. He challenged the credibility of someone who has made a career out of tearing players down without ever acknowledging his own failures as a coach or talent evaluator. And the moment Shedeur pushed back, the dynamic shifted. Suddenly, Rex wasn't the unquestioned authority in the room. Suddenly, he had to defend his stance. Suddenly, the criticism wasn't just flowing one direction. That was the moment everything boiled over. What followed was more than an argument. It was a generational clash. On one side, an old-school football mindset where players are supposed to be quiet, grateful, deferential, and willing to accept blame for organizational failures. On the other, a new generation of athletes who understand their value, their voice, and their right to challenge unfair narratives. That tension has been building across sports for years, but this moment crystallized it for everyone watching. Shedeur represented the new era of athletes who refused to let the media control their story. Rex represented the old guard who believe they still hold that power. And for the first time on national television, the old guard got publicly challenged in a way they couldn't easily dismiss. As the conversation continued, it became clear that this wasn't just about one game or one performance. It was about accountability. Why has Cleveland repeatedly failed to develop quarterbacks? Why has the organization allowed the same pattern to repeat for nearly 3 decades? Why are young players consistently being placed in situations that set them up to fail? These questions have been simmering among fans and analysts for years, but rarely have they been asked so directly and forcefully on a national platform. The analysts defending Shedeur weren't just supporting one player. They were calling out an organizational culture that has accepted mediocrity and dysfunction for far too long. And they were demanding that the responsibility be placed where it belongs. Meanwhile, Rex Ryan continued trying to frame the situation as a simple matter of readiness and performance, insisting that if Shedeur struggles, the blame should fall squarely on him. But that argument rang hollow in the face of overwhelming evidence that the team itself created the conditions for failure. The more Rex pushed his narrative, the more isolated he appeared. By the end of the segment, it wasn't just Shedeur pushing back. Multiple analysts were openly challenging Rex's perspective, calling out what they saw as unfair, biased, and context-free criticism. The interview became a referendum on how the media treats certain players, especially young black quarterbacks who are often subjected to harsher evaluation and narrower margins for error. And then there was the emotional layer involving Deion Sanders. Watching a father struggle with whether his presence would help or hurt his son was a powerful reminder that behind the helmets and headlines are real families navigating complex emotions. Deion has been criticized endlessly for being too involved in his son's careers, yet when he chooses to step back to avoid being a distraction, he is criticized for that too. The double standard is undeniable. And seeing analysts defend his restraint and love exposed the hypocrisy in the criticism that has followed him all season. It also highlighted the human element that often gets lost in sports media coverage. There is a young man stepping into the biggest moment of his career, and a father agonizing over how best to support him without contributing to the chaos. By the time the interview ended, the fault lines were unmistakable. This wasn't just a disagreement about football. It was a clash of values, perspectives, and narratives. It was about respect. It was about fairness. It was about whether a talented young quarterback would be evaluated honestly or buried under the weight of preconceived narratives. And now, everything comes down to Sunday. Because fair or not, the game against the Raiders will shape the next chapter of this story. If Shedeur performs well, he will seize control of the narrative and force even his harshest critics to reassess their positions. If he struggles, the narrative machine will unleash with full force, and the organization may use that performance to justify sidelining him again. But regardless of the outcome, one thing has changed permanently. Shedeur Sanders is no longer a silent participant in the story being told about him. He has asserted himself. He has demanded accountability. He has confronted those who diminish his ability. And he has shown the confidence and mental toughness that define true leaders in the NFL. That alone makes this moment monumental. Now the entire football world waits. Not just to see whether the Browns can beat the Raiders, but to see whether a young quarterback can rewrite the narrative that has been imposed on him. To see whether truth can overcome agenda. To see whether talent can finally be given the support it deserves. So let's turn it over to you. Do you think Shedeur Sanders is being treated unfairly by the media? Do you believe the Browns organization has failed its young quarterbacks for years? And most importantly, do you think Sunday will be the moment that changes everything for Shedeur? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy deep breakdowns like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Your support keeps this community growing, and we have so much more to cover as this story unfolds. Stay locked in, because the next chapter is coming fast.